So have y'all ever done anything like this before?
No.
No.
I've been on like local radio station, and we have a local TV station. I've been interviewed, in my sheriff's office stuff, but
I've been on the news.
Yeah, no podcasts.
No.
So
nothing like that. All right,
no.
Cool. All right, well, we're live. So
okay.
Tell me about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Chris, you can start.
Ladies first.
Ladies first. My name is Jennifer Foreman, and I, along with my husband Chris here, own Combat First Aid, and we have trained over 4,000 law enforcement officers, and we are branching out, and now we're teaching the general public bleeding control, and we've had over 45 saves from officers that have taken our course and then rendered care in the field. So it's my passion, and I love to teach, and I love to share it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So why is combat medicine so important for the civilian world, for first responders?
Well, the information that we teach or share is based on combat medicine, right? It's military proven, tried and true, and saves so many lives. And so it will just serve the citizen well. And it doesn't matter if you're at work in your given profession, or you're vacationing with family, or just doing life in general.
Right.
Yeah. You could end up in a situation where you need to care for yourself or for a family member, most likely in your daily living, probably even more so than in any given profession. So we just want to empower people, we want to educate them, and we want to save more lives by doing that. And we want people to be prepared and not scared. A lot of people are really intimidated by medicine in general,
sure.
But the way we break it down, we make it really, really easy. Just the meat and potatoes of tactical medicine, which could be a big cavern to dive into. But we really do our best to just simplify it and make it retainable.
Now, have you had any resistance at all from it?
I think it scares the general public because, especially if you hear tactical anything incorporated into it. So we take this same, like I said, meat and potatoes that we teach for SWAT or law enforcement, and we just make it more palatable for the general public.
Gotcha.
But I would say that there has been some agencies, and mostly fire, I love firefighters, right? All cops love firefighters, but there's been some fire departments and medical directors that are still anti-tourniquet. And so and Jen's the medical side. Like I'm just the rural cop here. In a little bit of my background is I wanted nothing to do with medicine at all. Jen and I would occasionally show up on calls together, and I'd want to leave right away, or put up evidence tape, but I wanted nothing to do with that, red stuff coming out. And, I worked for a county that's 2,900 square miles, and there's, if we're fat and we got a full shift, we got 10 folks on covering that county. And so, for me, it was just kind of waking up to the fact that if I have a serious issue, I've got a volunteer in a brush truck who's going to be staging and wait until the scene's secure. And so it was really kind of the aha moment for me of like, I really need to know this stuff for my own well-being. And I think, having kids and a family and like kind of having that self-check of like, hey, I need to know this stuff to make it home to my family at the end of my shift.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Jen, you're a paramedic, right?
Yes, I've been a paramedic for about 16 years. I was an EMT before that, and first responder before I graduated from high school. I had to get my diploma before they'd give me my EMT certificate.
Yeah.
And during that time, I was able to. It's a long story, but I ended up as a tactical paramedic on the SWAT team for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And that's how Combat First Aid started. I started doing the right thing and teaching my guys, my brothers on the SWAT. And then I got approached by the local police agency here, and they said, hey, can you teach the same thing you teach our SWAT guys, but can you teach it for everyday patrol? And with the help of all my SWAT brothers, and especially Chris here, they were my beta test. If they could get it, then I knew that I was speaking the language, and I knew that it transferred well, because TCCC typically is very military in lingo and nature and scenarios.
Sure.
So we were able to package it well to where they understood it. And so I knew that if I could get my SWAT guys on par, then I could get the everyday law enforcement guy or gal to take this out into the field. We've been able to equip everyone with all of the equipment that they need and give them the confidence to render care. So that's how it was born. I never intended on starting a business by any means.
Sure.
But word of mouth started getting out there. And I had to get a business license. They paid me just enough to cover my child care.
Yeah.
I had to create a business name. I didn't know what I was doing. And
trust me, I had no idea what I was doing when I started this. So I still don't.
No. Yeah. Crazy life. It's
trying to be a business person on top of being a first responder is difficult, to say the least.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. There's, you have all those the ones that are super successful on social media, like your Mike the Cops and all those people. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't know how they found a way to balance it, because I sure as hell haven't figured it out yet at all. So how did y'all meet?
That's a good story.
So I got hired with the sheriff's office, and I was on FTO at the time, and I'd been in the area, moved over from Seattle area, and my FTO at the time was on the SWAT team, and I was an FNG, brand new, and was told to, sit down and observe and watch, and saw a cute blonde in a paramedic uniform hanging out. And one of the few guys I knew that was a deputy at the time, who I was introduced to, was talking to Jenn's partner, and come to find out Jenn's boss was a deputy for the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
And he, so anyway, when the guy that I knew walked away, I was like, hey, who's that gal over there? And he told me that he didn't know her, but she had mentioned that she was single, and so then he said you should go talk to her. So
yeah,
I went over, and we chatted, and anyway, I gave her my number at the end of the night, and she waited the standard 3 days, and then called me, and
the standard 3 days.
Yeah, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Long time ago, anyway. I don't know how it goes now, but yeah.
Yeah, you may have lost my video feed there. You may not be able to see me. I can still see you.
Okay.
So that might be weird to work with here for a second, but so what did you? Chris, did you have like an interest in in medicine, or was it just a new thing for you that was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool, this is how I score this with her as I get interested in medicine? Is that kind of how that went, or?
No, not really. I mean, because we met in 2003,
yeah,
and we're married in 2004, and I was like, Jenn wasn't into. I think you've been on one ride along with me,
yeah,
since we've been married. Since we've known each other, and she did her medical thing, I did my cop thing, and it was it was kind of two different things. And then with her, getting on the SWAT team, she was on the team before me, and then I got on a year later, and then she started teaching, and so I think in addition to the other guys on the team, I was one of her guinea pigs, and just, making this fit for the wheelhouse that we work in as cops, and especially, in a rural area where, you gotta just, you gotta know how to talk to people, and you gotta know how to do stuff on your own. You can't rely on other people to do it. So it was, she was, she'd bounce stuff off me, and I'd be like, that's too complicated, or it's too medical. Guys don't know what that means. And so we just, melded, the curriculum. And, Jen can speak more on it, but, she started out with a 4-hour class, and then eventually she needed some help designing scenarios that would make sense for cops, that cops would understand, to put the medicine into place. And so I helped her. Our classes, the whole second half of the day is scenario-based training. So we're moulaging people up and putting them in, scenarios that would be normal, calls that law enforcement responds to, a downed officer, or, a suspicious call, and they stumble onto something. So, and then there's, the way we have the actors moulaged up, there's active bleeding, and they got to either do a tourniquet application, a chest seal, a wound stuff, or a combination of those.
Right.
And so that's, kind of how it morphed. With me being, I guess, interested, I was essentially free help, and she took advantage of it.
To this day, I'm sure. So, obviously, back then in 2003 to that 2005, when, y'all were beginning together, but in that too, that was kind of the birth of, at least from my understanding of it, tactical combat casualty care really starting to make its way as a kind of a mainstream training format, or mainstream training topic for law enforcement. Because prior to that, you weren't getting tourniquets, you weren't getting blowout kits, you weren't getting anything like that. That was nobody even thought about that stuff. It was get an ambulance here, or throw a wounded officer or somebody in the back of a squad car and get them to the nearest trauma center. And now you're seeing that application and all the amazing advancements that have happened in 17 years of war, basically, because that's the birth of it, and that's where it comes from, at least from what I've seen and what I've been taught. And it's amazing how quickly we've adapted to that. But I still feel like law enforcement and fire departments have a long way to go in, one, adopting those programs, and two, working together in those programs. Where I'm from here in North Texas, with the exception of maybe some of your major metropolitan agencies, a lot of the smaller agencies, their fire departments and police departments are not on the same page when it comes to that. And I'll give you an example of that. I had a vehicle versus train accident with an ejection from the vehicle, and that guy was messed up. I mean, his arm was real bad, and I applied a tourniquet. I got the bleeding to stop. He ended up dying anyway, but when the fire department got there, they were pissed. They were like, "What is this?" And they were yelling at me to get that crap off of him. And then I'm yelling at them, "No, I'm not taking that off of him. I stopped the bleeding on his arm." That was the only place where there was a visual bleed. Everything else was internal. Of course, I have no way of knowing that, but I did what I thought was right based off of my self-aid buddy aid training, and it was the first time I'd ever been able to apply it in the field with that equipment. So, and then I hear, then I have these actual paramedics that are telling me I'm doing it wrong. And then it kind of makes you take a step back where you're like, oh, am I doing the right thing here? And I think there's a real issue with police departments and fire departments getting on the same page. Have y'all had that issue where you're at? And we lost feed. All right, so I'm talking to myself right now.
Did we lose you?
Oh,
yeah, you there?
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, we had an interruption in video. Y'all probably heard nothing of what I said. I was sitting here talking to myself.
We're talking about the paramedics showing up.
Telling me you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or getting him off his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, they, in their world, you know, they didn't understand that, and they weren't trained for that.
Yeah.
And so,
Exactly. And I wasn't trained for that for so long as well. I fought when I got back from my 2-week tactical medic training,
right,
that I was sent to initially. I went to our MPD and I was like, hey, we've got to make an advancement. This is there's efficacy in this. It's evidence-based medicine that we can incorporate. And it took a slow, steady drip over a couple years, and I was able to write our protocol for our county, for our Chelan Douglas County, and get those protocols in place. But I still had some resistance. I heard of a fire chief that they were issued all the gear, all of the agencies, and one of the fire chiefs were like, nope, tourniquets are bad. People are going to lose their limbs. This is not okay. And he took the gear and he put it in his office and didn't deploy them onto their rigs, which was just crazy for me to hear.
right,
But I feel like we are making advancements because we were I was awarded a $10,000 grant in our area to train all of our EMS and fire, which is so exciting. We were just at an agency yesterday, and we had a combined law enforcement EMS and course, and it was so neat. We did it at our law enforcement platform.
right.
And so the EMS folks got to sit through, really understand, or at least have the start of an understanding of what law enforcement is called to do and how all of these jobs now are based on them, because EMS is staging. They are not going to be there. We are not the answer. And the people that are going to get there and stop bleeding before EMS is even thought of to once the scene is clear is law enforcement.
Right.
So they need to know this stuff, and we need to stop having these stupid turf wars. We all need to be able to play together well, because why are we here? We're here for the citizens. We are here to protect and serve, no matter what badge you wear or patch you wear. So we've got to start breaking down those walls and talking to each other.
Well, I mean, you're right. I feel it's a jealousy thing because, they're America's second responders. So, they have to stage. We got to make them feel it. No, I'm kidding. No, you're right though. I mean, it's a problem, and I feel like it's a problem in a lot of different areas. It's the same thing with communications. Communications has always been a problem throughout the first responder world forever, since the beginning of time, whether that be interagency or agency to agency or police to fire and vice versa. A lot of times people are on the same page. I feel like for your smaller fire departments, this concept of the police rendering medical aid is a weird concept for some.
Sure.
Maybe an uncomfortable concept because that's their job, right? In their mind. Yep. But there are nationwide practices in place where law enforcement shows up, secures a scene, and in that comes the possibility that you might have to render immediate aid. We have a duty to preserve life, right? And the training is vitally important. But in that same vein, I've seen law enforcement agencies where they buy tourniquets, right? And they're like, okay, here's your tourniquet, and then that's it. There's nothing else behind that. It's like, what do you even do?
It's so frustrating.
And it is frustrating. And I've been through the self-aid buddy aid and TCCC, and then I come with that knowledge, and then I carry all that stuff. I carry, I've got a big bag I carry with me in my front seat that's got everything I need to handle several different types of hemorrhages and traumatic wounds, and and I keep up on that stuff. But then I see where from an admin support, and I'm not knocking my admin, this is a generality, is
sure.
They give tourniquets out, but there's nothing on the back end of that. And oftentimes I've seen where they hand out tourniquets and a little holster for your belt, and they're like, here you go. And then dudes stuff it on the back of their belt or behind their gun or behind their radio, where if they were to take a frontal wound or they disable an arm and they're not able to get to it because it's all the way on the other side of them, because nobody teaches them anything. And
Right.
it seems like it's a placebo. It's like, okay, we have tourniquets, so we're good to go, right? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I've seen has been one of the biggest downfalls of it. It's just kind of like this little placebo, like, here's your little Band-Aid, okay, we're good to go. Have you?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same thing where y'all are from?
Yeah.
We're changing it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, 15 years now in law enforcement, the general training that I got at the academy was, we like to refer to it as playground first aid.
Right.
Take the square, turn it into a triangle. You can make a splint, and and what I was equipped with out of the academy when I came to a medical call was to tell them that the medics were coming. That was the extent of my medical training,
Absolutely.
And so, what I, unfortunately, even in Washington, the vast majority of cops are carrying tourniquets or on their person. But even at the academy, they do like a 15-minute talk about it, from my understanding. And, same thing, they get the equipment, they're giving it to them. They might get a little bit of instruction from an FTO in their first, in their car, and that's it. And no one's training with them. No one's taking them out to the range. No one's putting them into play where they should, and getting, those reps of muscle memory of training with, designated training tourniquets.
Right.
And like anything else, Washington State, in the curriculum, if you go online to get certified to be, to get your tourniquets are bad still. So I mean, there's that whole change, like you talked about, getting fire and EMS on board, getting understand that this does fall on us in today's day and age, and I know, and I feel like most cops get it, especially with things that have happened in the last 10 years and civil suits where the public now, essentially, when we shoot someone, good, bad, or indifferent, they want us to do something.
Sure.
And so they want us to treat them. And so, that's essentially been a change since I've been a cop too. I mean, that I never, you cop social media and everything else.
And I'm losing them. Can y'all hear me at all?
If we can't save them, trying. So.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? I kind of lost you there for a second.
I can hear you.
Okay. No, you're right. And, an interesting point off what you just said, is that it has changed to where now we shoot somebody, just like you said, and if we have to, unfortunately, and then we have to make those considerations to render aid to that person, which back in the day, pardon my French, it was like, fuck them, they tried to kill me, whatever, and
yeah.
it's kind of a weird deal, and there's some hesitancy, I'm sure, in some people's minds to do that. Obviously our job is not to kill people, right, as expected in some circles in the world, and our own media too, but we do have a duty to preserve life, even if we've made an attempt to take it based on stopping a threat. And it's a very interesting it's an interesting dynamic for sure, in my opinion. But
no, I agree. And one of the things that we actually really drive home in our class, when we're teaching law enforcement, is that we want them to do their cop stuff first, is what we call it. But officer safety is paramount. And so we actually have scenarios where bad guys are shot, and we want to make sure that they're handcuffing them and patting them down and searching them and making sure that they're safe before they go into aid. Because a lot of times when we're running the scenarios, it's this new skill, and guys are going right in and they're sacrificing officer safety to stop active bleeding.
right.
And so that's one of the things that we are, we really drive the point home, like, hey, we're giving you more tools, but we still want want you to do all your cop stuff first, and then you just got some more tools to put, together once the scene's safe, so to speak, and you're safe.
That's why our name is Combat First.
Right.
We want to do their combat stuff first and then aid. We're not here to make medics.
But combat's a dirty word in certain circles.
It is. Yeah.
Words like combat, tactical, in the age of community-oriented policing, some of those words are difficult. And in that, have you had any perception issues when it comes to the name of your company when you approach certain agencies?
Well, that's why we also go by critical first aid and bleeding control.
Right, yeah.
We're the parent company's Combat First Aid, but then we have these divisions that we can blanket out into so that if it's not palatable for them, we can help that, bridge that a little bit.
Sure.
But I would say, to answer your question, we have had a little bit of, uneasiness with the name. And not to stereotype, but, the western side of our state tends to be a little bit more on the liberal side. And so they're
you don't say.
Very worried, very worried about, the touchy-feely stuff. And so I think we've had some people sit in our class that were, I think kind of doubters coming in, but I think they get the message, and to the public side, and some of the colleges we trained, community colleges, and kind of branching out that way. But they recognize that that no one's coming, and they got to do something. And so we try to empower them, like, hey, instead of you being a liability or an unknown, you're an asset, and you have something that you can do. Essentially, you're an immediate responder. You're there at the scene when it happens, and with some simple tools, you can save lives. And it seems that all the feedback that we've gotten from the public has been all supportive. It's been, I feel like people feel empowered, and they were intimidated, and by the end of the day they're like, hey, I can do this. And so it's neat to see people that maybe come in with worried what it's going to be, right, or they're asking kind of those questions, this combat thing, but when they hear the message of why we would do it and why Jen and I are so passionate about it, that they become believers.
Yeah, well, I think they should. That should be the response. I mean, there's so many different aspects. I mean, take first responders out of it, and you just have regular citizens. How beneficial is that training to helping a loved one, or helping a stranger if they're inclined to, it's incredible, or themselves
exactly.
If they get into a jam, and it's incredibly beneficial. Honestly, it's training that everybody should have. It's training. It's a base level of knowledge that everybody should have. You may not be interested in learning how to use a firearm or doing self-defense, but you should certainly learn how to do self-care and care for others to help save a life. I think that's important.
100%. And like that's kind of where we hope. I mean, and not like hey, we're going to teach America, but we hope that this bleeding control and how it's packaged for civilians is just like first aid and CPR. Like everybody learns it, and it's definitely a skill that you're probably do to a loved one and help save their life. We've some of our saves have been off-duty cops that are carrying the stuff around in their personal rigs,
sure,
and have rolled up on stuff and put the stuff to use. So it wasn't even stuff on duty; it was off duty.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in delving into both sides of it. If you're going to train to put holes in somebody, you should train how to plug them up. And just when I'm off duty, I carry a gun and also carry a tourniquet and an Israeli bandage on me everywhere I go. And because to me, that's standard equipment, because I may need it, somebody else may need it, and it's a big deal. Now, in that, though, when dealing with, regular citizens, regular civilians, is there any apprehension from what y'all have seen to actually help somebody because they're afraid to get sued or anything like that?
Well, that's always a question that comes up, but it goes back to the Good Samaritan law that protects you. Yeah. And if it doesn't help them mentally, I mean that's what it comes down to, is that that's the stuff the nightmares are made of.
Of course.
Is you see this incident happen and you do nothing, and that haunts you for the rest of your life. We've had grown men in our class come to terms that their partner died right in front of them.
Right.
But they didn't have the tools. They didn't know what to do. And so those can be career enders for law enforcement. But then for the citizens now, once they realize, we have them come in and I have them like, hey, who just does not like blood? Who does not even want to even get their hands?
Oh, I know plenty of cops that can't handle blood.
Oh, yeah. And I warn them, too. Yeah. I warn them, too, when, the videos come up. I don't believe that it's, I don't believe I should show videos and graphic pictures just for the shock and awe value. That's just not ethically responsible of me. Right. But I do believe in inoculation therapy, I call it. So we'll inoculate them a little bit at a time. Mm-hmm. We'll so you're seeing the stuff on the screen, but at least when you get to it later on in the scenarios in the afternoon, it'll be even more realistic, and then it'll prepare you so that if you do come across this in your job or in your life, you will be confident. And so it's pretty cool to see people that can't even hardly look at the screen at the beginning of the class, and then by the end of the day, they're diving into our animal tissue lab that we do. They're going right in and they're applying well-directed direct pressure to a bleed while somebody figures out, okay, what tool do we use? Okay, this is a tourniquet. Oh, no, it's too high. We're going to grab our combat gauze or our Celox and we're going to stuff the wound.
Right.
Or, let's put the sticky on the icky and we'll put the chest seal on. And it's just so cool that they get it. And then at the end of the day, they're like, okay, I don't know if this sounds weird, but I can't wait to use this. So it's just so gratifying.
And what's funny, it's not weird at all. It's not weird at all to be excited about that. Nobody wants anything bad to happen. Yeah, nobody wants anything bad to happen, but like they have the tools to do something about it if it does. And yeah, it's kind of it's like when you first get out on the street as a cop and you're just like, oh, I can't wait to fight somebody. I can't wait to chase somebody. I can't wait to do all those things. And then you do it and you're like, well, maybe I should have pumped the brakes on that a little bit, but so for people that don't understand what the Good Samaritan law is, can you explain it?
Oh man, I mean, more or less, we have a duty to act, but citizens, it's like, don't do anything that you've seen on MacGyver or on some 911 show.
Right. Stay
in your lane. You can do basic first aid. Tourniquets are in the curriculum for American Heart Association and most.
And.
All
right. Again.
Who's listening that doesn't know about the efficacy of tourniquets and if they're bad. I just want to let you know the risk of if you use a proper tourniquet, right? And we go through what a proper tourniquet is, so that's a whole class in itself. But if you're using a proper tourniquet, and we recommend what TCCC, the risk to you, a loved one, or someone else that you're rendering is less than 1%. People lose limbs because of the injury, not tourniquet use. You just have to really change these conceptions and these wrong ideas that had been planted to our psyches for so many years. Tourniquet's bad. You've got to use the proper but basic control can hands until you get that tool. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Your internet connection's cutting out pretty bad. Give me a second. Well, if it hadn't been one thing, it's another tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Technology.
I think yeah, right. I think we got the most of what you said. I think we're cutting out again though.
Do anything on our end?
Give it just a second.
Okay.
It's sometimes the. Are you on a Wi-Fi connection or?
Yeah.
We are. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the sometimes that's the problem with trying to stream stuff over the internet, video, and it's easier with like Ethernet cable where you get a direct hard connection instead of Wi-Fi. Sometimes Wi-Fi, the signal cuts in and out. But all right, I think I have you back though. Yes. All right. Awesome. Okay. So I'm not going to make you run through all that. We got most of it. I heard most of it. So, yeah, good times. So
I was on a roll.
You were on a roll. Yeah. I did that earlier when I was talking to myself and you guys cut out. So we've all had it tonight. What does it take if somebody wants to become or somebody's interested? Maybe they're not a first responder. Maybe they're just a regular old person, and they're interested in not only learning more about the topic but wanting to become an instructor. How would they do that?
Oh, and I guess my encouragement would just be to start by taking a course.
Right.
Sign up for a Stop the Bleed course if they have one in their area. And then, of course, we travel. So we have the curriculum for law enforcement and combat first aid. We have the curriculum for Stop the Bleed or bleeding control.
Right.
And I think that is just a great place to start, a great place to invest because it will serve you well in life. It just in life in general, and it'll give you that confidence. And the part that is frustrating, and like you had mentioned before, a lot of law enforcement agencies will issue these tourniquets out and say, hey, good luck, or they might have a quick little show and tell.
Right.
And by well-meaning folks, a lot of times I remember doing the show and tell, and it was, hey, this is how cool I am as a paramagical early on in my career. And I realized it just didn't serve people well.
Sure.
So I need to empower them. I need to show them. And not only show them, but then they need to do it.
Right.
They need to get their hands on them. They need to get the reps. See one, do one, teach one. Crawl, walk, run is what we say.
Sure.
We're going to start at the basics and just work our way up, and we'll get quicker, and we'll time it, and we'll put you under stress, and then we'll get you into a scenario and just see how you do. And we're there, we're to support them and get them up to speed. And so you really have to make sure you're evaluating a program or a company, because there's a lot of fly-by-nights that get there, and they're great people, they're great medics,
Sure.
but they just don't have the instructor chops. They don't know how to communicate it well. And by the end of the day, the scenarios are our report card.
Right.
If people are jacking stuff up and not doing things correctly, it's because I didn't teach them well. My team didn't teach them well. So when you have us, you have us all day. For that whole time, and we pour into you, and we want to make sure that you not only have the confidence but the competence, and those two things make or break people. The devil is in the details, like I say.
Sure.
So yeah.
Anyway, and I think it's not hard stuff. It's not hard to do.
No.
None of it's hard to do. It's not like you're not performing brain surgery. You're stopping bleeding, which is incredibly simple for a reasonably intelligent person, for your average person to be able to do. And we lost him. All right. Technical difficulties. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been one of those days. I'm just telling you right now. It's been one of those days where stuff just doesn't work. So let me get him back. The awesomeness of a live video. This is one.
We're back.
All right.
Jeez, man.
Except I don't. Oh, you're coming, I think.
You do.
Got the blue screen.
Okay.
Let's see if
I can hear you.
you can hear me. I can hear you. I can't see you anymore.
Oh, yeah. Here, let's see. Okay, well, the video.
That's to turn
I know,
it
I turned it off.
There we go. All right. This has been awesome.
Oh.
The content's awesome. The recording stuff is not.
We need to take two.
Oh yeah, well I definitely have y'all back on for sure. But what I was gonna say is that I've gotten to the point where in my firearms training classes where I teach for my department, I always have scenarios built in where there's at a minimum tourniquet application, where we're doing live fire drills with tourniquets and downed officer drills and all that. Because, we just did one recently, and I took a survey of the class, and these are people that work in my own agency, and I took a survey of the class, and how many people have used a tourniquet, and you have some with military backgrounds that have pretty decent training in that, and maybe have gotten a little bit of it in law enforcement, but a good chunk didn't. They're carrying this thing on their belt, and they have no idea how to use it. And it's kind of scary, if you think about it. You're carrying around equipment that you don't know how to use, and it's bad enough trying to get cops to shoot straight, but then you're trying to incorporate a whole new concept. But it's a relatively simple concept, and they're able to grasp it pretty easily. Once they're shown a few times, they're usually able to grasp it pretty quick and perform it fairly well, and usually without cranking down too hard on the tourniquet to hurt people. But because when I went through TCCC, I got cranked on pretty hard, and that was not fun. I can imagine what that feels like when you actually need it. But oh
no, that's the whole point. Yeah. Well, I don't let people get out of our class. Like, we go around and check everybody, and I'm like, come on, faker. Get it on there. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. If you don't do it right during training, you're going to revert back to that when you have to do it for real, and you're going to back off when somebody says, ow. Well, guess what? Newsflash, tourniquets freaking hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, don't leave them on all day, right? Get them off after the class. But come on, let's do this, people. We only have so much time to train. Let's do it right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. And, most agencies, are pretty hurt on budgets, and every time budget time comes around and there's cuts here and cuts there, and the first place everybody wants to go is training. That's one of the first budgets that gets hit, and some of those things that seem kind of a fringe benefit, equipment or training wise, sometimes get cut out. And unfortunately, I feel like when it comes to the medical side of things, that's one of the things that gets the axe. Now, what's interesting is that there for here in North Texas in particular, for a little while after July 7, 2016, in the ambush in Dallas, there was kind of a surge of, reinvigorating patrol rifle programs, medical programs, etc. But just like with everything else, we tend to get a slap in the face every once in a while, and then we have short memories. And things tend to die down. And unfortunately, it seems like it takes something major to happen before people go, oh, yeah, that's important. And then they get back into it. And if you don't take advantage of those times, right, as in a general sense, people get lost in the mix, which is why I think it's important for companies like yours to be able to continuously get that education out there, because it is important. It's certainly important for the first responders, and it's as equal to or maybe even more important for regular citizens to learn that stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just, some of the experience that we've kind of learned through this process is, if we can get anyone from an administration, essentially those that hold the purse strings, to sit in on our class, they normally have, I would just say 99% have the light bulb go on, and they recognize that every single guy or gal in their department needs this training.
Sure.
And that you break it down, it's like, hey, equipment, training, you're talking about, $300-400 an officer. And how much is an officer worth if you lose one, right? You're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to retrain that guy. Not to mention, towards a.
And I lost you again.
Oh.
Right when you were at the best part of what you were saying, the greatest thing you've said today was gone forever now. No, I know where you're going with that. I know I can get where you're going with that. And yeah, it's a valid point. But you asked the question, how much are your people's lives worth? I know of some places that can answer that with $1 and cents amount. And that's unfortunate. And it's just like, it comes down to, and that's just with anything. You take not just a medical program, but just general equipment, replacing cars, guns, just simple things, simple training. Sometimes, sometimes a dollar amount is put on it. And that's extremely unfortunate. What's interesting, well, I ask this, does your agency, does it have, obviously probably you help with this, but is there a pretty good medical program for officers where you work?
Yeah, so, Jenn really pioneered it, and our agency was, one of the first ones to have, tourniquets on our belts. Now we have, chest carriers, exterior belts, or exterior vests, so guys have them mounted there.
I'm going to stop you real quick on that, though. That. External carriers, the load-bearing vests.
Yes.
How successful have those been for you guys?
We've had a lot of success. I think even a lot of our old timers who have back problems, like wearing that stuff up on their chest versus around their hips.
Yeah.
And so I just rotated back to patrol in January after being plain clothes for the last 7 years, and so I was handed a external carrier. Here you go. This is what we carry now. And for me, having lower back issues, it's been helpful. The nice thing is I can take it off when I get in the office and work on paperwork, whatever, and then throw it right back on when it's time to go to a call or, so there's some things that I like. It's nice I have my chest seals in the pockets right in front, and then I have my quick clot also, so I'm able to carry pretty much all of my personal stuff to treat, and then obviously I have a go bag in my rig like you talked about. So
yeah, I asked that because my agency is getting ready to switch to those. So
okay,
and we're all super excited about it because I know you said you had lower back issues. You can't imagine a cop having lower back issues, which is funny because I don't think a lot of people understand that how much
right.
medically that affects a person. That duty belt, what it does to the lower spine, to the lumbar is unbelievable. The amount of degrees in which the bend changes just from that belt is unbelievable. Like I got into a really bad on-duty car accident back in 2012, and I've had horrible back issues ever since. And by the end of the day, I feel like I've made love to a hippo. It's just like I'm just all messed up, and it's an ongoing thing, and I cannot wait to get that. And I've worn load-bearing vests in training, and it just, God, it makes such a difference. It's unbelievable. And in that same vein, has there been any response from our citizens weird about it? Do they look and go, oh my, because you're part of the country. I'm in Texas. I'm in a free state. I don't know. I don't know about where y'all live. No. But has there been any weird like kickback from that at all?
No, it really hasn't.
That's awesome. That's a good thing.
It's been well received with the public. I mean, I would say our uniform is more casual than, the typical Class A slacks, long sleeve shirt,
Right.
Your Class Bs or whatever. But even the Washington State Patrol, who like pride themselves on, the best uniforms in the country, they got these baby blue uniforms and bow ties, but they had a special exterior vest that they had designed that looks like, it goes along with their their fancy uniform, and they essentially made it functional, and same stuff, they have pockets where they can carry more stuff on the front, so it's I think it's going to be the way of the future.
Oh yeah, I think in 10, 15 years you're going to see most agencies are going to be wearing that kind of stuff. I also think you'll see fire departments with body armor,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to me.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who gets mad at a firefighter? Who wants to shoot a firefighter? Right? I mean, they're here to help you. Why would you want to shoot them? That makes no sense. But I mean, it happens. It happens. It happens a lot, unfortunately.
We just did our first full agency Olympia Fire Department. We trained their entire agency rescue task force, and they, for the first time, got to practice and mess with all the gear on their person and escorted through one of a scenario. And they did a really good job, and they're still trying to figure out where the line is and how to keep them safe. But I think we did a good job preparing them.
Yeah, but it goes back to what you said earlier, when we first started, about how police and fire don't play well together sometimes, and trying to get everybody on the same page. And that's one of the things that I'm still, now that I've come back out to patrol, we have 5 high schools in our county, and we have a majority of our fire departments are volunteer fire departments. So it's like, is it even a reality that they're going to go in under escort, to these patients? Or are we going to have to bring them out to a casualty collection point? But like, that question right there has never been answered. So I'm like just trying to go out there and be like, hey, how would you guys respond to this? Because I think we have one assumption, they haven't done their assumption, and they're
guaranteed
not at all.
Yeah, guaranteed it's going to be 2 different ideas on how that works, and that's why I think it's important that fire departments and police departments train together, especially during like active shooter training, so that police departments better understand how to set up CCPs, but also fire departments understand how or what the priorities are for the police department in dealing with a threat, clearing a building, and ensuring that the environment's safe for those things to be able to not only build up but function and continue to operate until it's time to move people to another location like a hospital. And it's just you just don't see that. I mean, you just, on a mass scale, you don't see it. I'm sure there's places where that happens, where they do train together very well. I mean, it's a rarity where I'm at. I can tell you that for sure.
Well, that's my challenge to everybody out there, though. I mean, it really is going to be the difference maker. I mean, we've done the best that we can just locally here. Get creative, right? We got funding from our local hospital or our local trauma center to get this training out there to the public.
That's awesome.
And we're also getting, we got the grant funding to do all the training for our local EMS and fire. And then with that, we're combining courses just like we did yesterday with EMS and fire. So, I mean, go create partnerships within your community. If the police agency can't find money, they don't have it in their budget, approach the local hospital, see what they have available, approach the local EMS council and see what can we do to do more combined training. How can we do this? And those bridges will be crossed, those obstacles will be set aside, because if you just get people in this room and talking,
Right.
It makes all the difference in knowing the strengths and weaknesses. Like you said, look, we know there's just a different expectation for volunteer agencies out there.
Sure.
Not that they don't want to, they just don't have the ability to do that.
Right.
So if we're not putting it all on the table and having that conversation, it's not going to serve our citizens well, and that's who we're here to serve and protect.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
So between the two of you, who's the better shot?
Chris is for sure. I've gotten lucky a couple times in competitions, but he's for sure.
She's pretty good though. Our qual for SWAT, 90%. And
yeah.
Jenn had the same quals as all the full-time coppers, so she had to put her time in, but yeah, she hung with everybody else.
I had to do the same physical qual too.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Jenn, what side of it do you enjoy more?
Oh man,
that may not. That may not even be a fair question, but
it's not. Well, yeah, I have the unique ability to be able to do both.
Right.
Right. I mean, I just feel so fortunate that I did gain an understanding, and I was in the fire service early on too, so I feel like I can talk the lingo in the room with any immediate responder, which is fun. I have at least a really good baseline understanding of what their job is, and
right.
because I've been able to do them all.
Has that helped bridge any gaps in understanding from working both sides of it?
Heck yeah. Just yesterday, I mean, we did a law enforcement based class, but I was able to insert little side notes and things and have that and like create a group discussion
right.
With both sides of the table to facilitate that is pretty cool to see that happening.
Absolutely.
The other cool facet too is, and it just kind of by default, but Jenn's on our kids' school board, and so she's been able to kind of talk about it from the school perspective. So when we started to train teachers in our high schools and some students in this, and they have bleeding control kits in the schools. And so that's just one other facet that Jenn's kind of able to talk from as a mom and as a school board member of, hey, this is the kind of training that we need to have, rather than just hunkering down in the classroom, locking the doors and hoping and praying the cops get there in time. But what other strategies are out there? There's all the different acronyms for, response, run, hide, fight, or Lance, or
Grace,
but there's different things that you can do. And I'm sure you've heard some of the debriefs, but the people that hang out in the classroom and wait are those are the ones getting mowed down. So if you can run, it's a lot harder to shoot a running target than one sitting there, right? So I mean,
especially for somebody with no training.
But it's just getting them to think that way, though, and again having the conversation, and just again asking those questions, because there's just nobody again, and that's different venue, but again there's communicating is not occurring. So
right. Have y'all had the opportunity to cross train with any not necessarily, I guess, kind of private firearms instructors, like guys that there's one guy from y'all's area actually, from Kent, Washington, Bill Blowers. And
we love Bill.
We love Bill. Hey, Bill, I listen to his podcast. He talked to him for like 2 hours.
Oh, I know, yeah. He just wouldn't shut up. Like I tried to get him.
I know.
He just wouldn't stop, and I'm scared of him, so I don't, I wasn't going to tell him anything.
So here's the cool connection. Bill was the first one outside of our region to have me come to Kent and teach all his guys.
Really?
So they were my first real class I did outside of the folks that I knew here. Yeah. I was incredibly intimidated, but I got the Bill Blowers seal of approval, which meant a lot to me. He was a great mentor. He was one of the guys that I called hey, I guess I'm doing this business thing. What do I need to do? What's the avenue? What's the in? How do I get my name out there? And he was super encouraging, and
awesome.
and I'm forever grateful to Bill for that early on encouragement. He's been great.
That's nice.
And we also, two other guests that you've had on your podcast is Jenn and I went down to Portland in June and went through Sheepdog Response. Jenn went through the SOTEC with Mike Simpson, and then I went through and got thrashed royally on the mats by Tim Kennedy and his instructors, and did the level 1 sheepdog. But it was great training.
Yeah, Tim's a wild man.
Yeah, he is. I got to know him being on our board for the Washington State Narcotics Investigators Association. We needed a keynote speaker, and I reached out to him. And I mean, talk about such a cool, down to earth guy. I was fortunate enough to get some time with him, but that guy bleeds blue like no other. Yeah. And I met his dad. His dad's retired narc cop, and and his brother's a cop, and I'm sure you know his story. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but just a guy he's passionate about training cops and making sure that they survive and are trained well. And so anyway, it was just a blast to get to hang out with him. And he obviously, if you've heard him speak in any shape or form, he is super passionate about what he believes in, and
absolutely,
he and putting bullets in bad guys and stopping blood out of the good guys. So
the one thing I really like about Tim is, despite all his exposure and all the things that he has going on, he's super accessible, and he will take the time to talk to you, and that's speaks to his character. And Mike Simpson, which by far is one of my favorite podcasts that we did, just because he's an incredibly knowledgeable guy and such a nice guy. Man, you want to talk about a wealth of knowledge. That guy's just unbelievable. Like how intelligent he is. It's kind of intimidating a little bit, because I'm just a knuckle dragging cop. So, so I had a question and then I forgot what it was. So,
hey, can I throw one quick story out for Tim that I think's pretty amazing? Just his character. So when I was down there for Sheepdog Response, there were two Kent police officers that came down and were in the class with me. And I don't know if you heard, but they lost an officer here this summer. And those two guys were on his crew. And one of them was the first one at the scene, and the other one had taken that night off and wasn't there. And long story short, I reached out to Tim and just said, hey, I know it would mean a lot if you could just call these guys and encourage them. And no joke, 2 minutes after I sent the email, Tim called both those guys and got in contact with them. Yeah. So, I mean, just a tremendous supporter of law enforcement, and meant a huge deal to those guys. It was really cool.
Yeah, and both of those guys were affected by that in vastly different ways. The one that took that was off. Just the regret. I mean, hell, when my friend Brent Thompson was killed in Dallas on July 7th, I hadn't worked at that agency in almost 5 years, and I even felt like, why wasn't I there? You know what I mean? So I can't. He's fresh in that situation, and and then of course the other one that was there. I mean, it's incredibly traumatic. For people that deal with that and lose friends on the job. It's a hard thing. And that being said, is there anything? Do y'all cover any sort of? I mean, you talked about it a little bit earlier about definitely about mindset. But is there anything about the after effect of dealing with maybe having to deal with traumatic care on somebody and seeing those things and how to process them?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we do talk about, and I don't know if much about Washington, but the Academy now started this new propaganda about guardians, and we're no longer warriors, we're guardians, and that's a bunch of bullshit.
Don't get me started on that.
there'll be people that'll be offended or upset that I say that, but like we refer to it as a warrior mindset, and we talk about it in class that you need to be prepared when you go to work, and you need to be prepared to be shot. And if you get shot, not go in the tank and like, okay, I'm going to die, and you need to fight through that and do what you need to do. And Jen talks the medical portion, and at the end of the day, you only have so much blood in your body, and when you run out of so much, you're going to lose fighter motor skill, and there's going to be consequences for that. But at the same time, we definitely feel like there's it's needed to talk about in the class of what your mindset needs to be in those types of situations.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that too, being prepared, and I mean, we had an officer that shot a mentally ill guy that was posing an active threat and put another officer at gunpoint and shot the guy. He ended up giving up, and they handcuffed him and then rendered care to him. He was transported to Harborview Medical Center, and the doctors there said, hey, that cop just saved this guy that he just shot life.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is the officer's wife heard the shot because it was in their neighborhood.
Oh my God.
The guy survived, and then just 2 hours later, he was home mowing his lawn at complete peace with all of it, because he didn't want to shoot this mentally ill guy, but he had to. And then he saved his life, and then he ended up getting a letter from the family saying, hey, thank you for saving his life. So again, it's not a career ender for this officer. They're not putting themselves, in deadly force encounters on purpose, but we're giving them that ability to know that they can do something about it after they have this encounter, and that they can sleep at night because they did everything they could to save their lives. So those are longevity things that we need to consider for all of our officers.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's incredible what you guys are doing. I really hope it grows and continues to be successful for you guys. What do you guys have coming up? What class? Plug some classes.
Yeah, we're filling some classes. We have several closed course classes, which is pretty cool for me, because I don't have to worry about getting the word out. So, but you can go onto our website at combatfirstaid.com. We're updating we're starting the schedule into 2019, which is really exciting. We had a record year last year. We had over 24 classes, as well as several private classes. So just keep going on our website for updates, and we'll keep putting those on there.
Awesome. And where can everybody find you guys? Give the website name, any social media.
Yeah. CombatFirstAid.com.
Okay.
Is our website. Instagram is Combat First Aid 1, and Facebook is just Combat First Aid. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's about all I got. Do you have any parting words of advice or anything?
Just we do sell the equipment that we teach or we train with and teach on our website. We have a little e-commerce on there, and we wanted to throw out a discount code to your listeners, and
awesome.
It'll just be Street Warrior Radio, and I put that in. They'll get a discount if they're interested.
All caps.
Yeah.
Street Warrior Radio.
Yeah. Awesome.
And,
big and bold.
Yeah,
I like that.
And I just, as a fan of your show, honored to be on here tonight, and we really love the message you guys push out, and as a cop, and just brother to brother, thank you for what you do, and it's encouraging, and it's helping us out there, so we appreciate it.
You say all those.
Keep up the good work.
You say all those kind things, and I'm starting to wonder if you've actually listened to what we say on this podcast.
We do. We both do.
Because some of them go, yeah, I don't know. No, thank you. I really do appreciate that. It's very, very nice of you to say. And I look forward to getting you guys back on at some point.
God
All
bless.
right.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jen, for being on. Have a good
Yep,
night.
our pleasure. Yep, keep preaching it out there.
Yes, sir. Night.
Night.
All right. Well, close that out. That was Jenn and Chris Foreman of Combat First Aid. Check them out. As they said, discount code on their website, Street Warrior Radio, all caps. Check them out. Take the classes. It's important. It's important knowledge. It's important to understand how to save a life. You know, you might be saving your own life. You might be saving somebody else's life. It's incredibly important training, and everybody should do it. It's everybody's responsibility, I think. Excuse me. And with that, yeah, BigBo will be here next episode, which we're doing tomorrow with Mr. Jim Dexter. If you're familiar with our episodes with Scott Jedi Jedlinski, he trains with him, and he's got a bunch of cool stuff going on. We'll get into that. This is our first live broadcast anywhere. I know we had some internet connection issues and all that fun stuff, but I think it went well. It'll get better as time goes on. But I'm glad that Chris and Jen were the first ones to be able to be on and get their message out there to the world. So if you want to find us, you can go to streetwarriorradio.com, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Twitch, all Street Warrior Radio. Just search there. Street Warrior Radio is most active on Instagram, by far. Our most active social media. Hit us up there. You can contact us directly at info@streetwarriorradio.com, or you can contact me directly at jc@streetwarriorradio.com, or BigBo at BIGBO@streetwarriorradio.com. You can also go on the website at streetwarriorradio.com/contact, and there's a contact form there. We love your questions. We love your comments, suggestions, war stories, etc. We've got a lot of guests coming up, so stay tuned for that. And the podcast, the audio podcast, you can find that on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and most other places that podcasts are found. And on top of that, the video version of the podcast is on YouTube and also on Twitch. So, with that, again, I want to thank Chris and Jenn Foreman for a great episode, great conversation, super important message and mission that they have. And yeah, I think that's all I got. So I want to thank our military, our brave men and women who are out there every day overseas fighting for us, for our freedom, and making everything that we have possible. And to our first responders, our police, fire, paramedics at all levels, thank you for what you do. Remember your oaths. Go out there, do the right thing, just like you do every day. Make a difference, save lives, get rid of bad guys, do all that fun stuff. And to everyone else out there, our fans, our supporters, everyone that's been with us, thank you so much for what you do and for being there with us. We love you, and man, this would be no fun without all of y'all and everybody else out there. Thank you, everyone that makes the world go round. We appreciate you. And last but not least, I can't believe I didn't mention these people. Our families of our first responders and our military, thank you for the sacrifices that you make. It is noted, and we appreciate you and the support. Everything that y'all do makes the service worth it, makes the sacrifice worth it. And with that, Street Warrior Radio is out of service.